Is the Bible really saying that women should be silent in churches? This controversial question arises from the Bible verse 1 Corinthians 14, verses 34 and 35, which states, "Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says." This verse has sparked many debates and interpretations over the years. Are we potentially misinterpreting its meaning? Could there be hidden layers to this verse that we have not yet discovered? Could there be a deeper context or a cultural backdrop that we're missing? Join us as we explore the depths of this verse, uncover its context, and seek its true meaning. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more thought-provoking discussions. To truly understand this verse, we need to examine it in detail and in its original context. Begin by transporting ourselves back in time to first-century Corinthian society. This was a time when women were not typically seen in leadership roles or even as equals to men. In fact, the social norms were such that women were often expected to stay silent in public gatherings, including the church. This historical and cultural context significantly influences the interpretation of this verse. Now, when we read 1 Corinthians 14, verses 34 and 35, it's important to remember that this was a letter from the Apostle Paul to the Corinthians. Paul was addressing specific issues that were present in the Corinthian church at that time. One of these issues may have been the disruptive behavior of some women during worship, which could be why Paul wrote, "Women should remain silent in the churches." However, this statement might not be a universal command but rather a specific instruction to address a particular situation. Let's consider other parts of the Bible that paint a different picture. In the book of Acts, for example, we see women like Priscilla and Lydia who played crucial roles in the early church. Priscilla, along with her husband Aquila, instructed Apollos, a man in the way of God, more accurately. Lydia, a businesswoman, offered her home as a meeting place for believers. These examples show that women were actively participating in and contributing to church activities. Galatians 3, verses 28 reminds us that there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is no male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. This verse emphasizes the equality of all believers in the eyes of God, regardless of gender, social status, or ethnicity. So when we look at 1 Corinthians 14, verses 34 and 35 in its historical and cultural context, and in light of other scriptures, we can see that the role of women in the church has evolved significantly since the first century. So appears that this verse might not be a blanket command for all times and places. But what does this verse mean for us today, in the 21st century? As we dive into the modern interpretations of 1 Corinthians 14, verses 34 and 35, we find that the waters are a little murkier than we might have initially thought. Today, many theologians argue that this verse shouldn't be used to limit women's participation in the church. They believe that the verse needs to be understood within its historical and cultural context. During Paul's time, women unfortunately weren't provided with the same educational opportunities as men. Hence, their questions during service could disrupt the flow, leading Paul to suggest that women should ask their husbands at home. This interpretation doesn't suggest that women should be silenced, but rather that everyone should seek to maintain order during church services. The context of the entire Bible, we see numerous strong vocal women, from Deborah, a judge of Israel, to Mary Magdalene, a close follower of Jesus. The Bible, seen in its entirety, doesn't suppress women but uplifts them. Remember, the Bible is a complex book, filled with diverse narratives and teachings. It's crucial not to cherry-pick verses but to understand them within the larger biblical narrative. This verse, like many others in the Bible, is not a clear-cut instruction but a piece of a larger, intricate puzzle. The key is to approach it with an open mind and a commitment to understanding its depth and complexity. So it's clear that this verse is not as straightforward as it might seem at first glance. Let's summarize what we've learned about 1 Corinthians 14, verses 34 and 35. We're on a journey to understand a verse that has often been misinterpreted, and we found that context is key. The verse, as we discussed, originates from a time and culture far different from ours. It addressed specific issues in the Corinthian church, where women were disrupting services with questions due to their lack of formal education. This verse should not be seen as a blanket prohibition against women speaking in church today. It was a solution to a specific problem in a specific time. Nowadays, with women having equal access to education and spiritual growth, the context has changed. We also delved into other scriptures that highlight the significant roles women played in the early church, further clarifying that the Bible does not universally silence women. Understanding the Bible is a journey, and every verse is a piece of a larger puzzle. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep growing in your faith.